Oh my goodness? Katt Williams really did it again. Months before anyone was ready to admit something was coming, he said it out loud. Not as a joke, not as exaggeration, as a warning. All lies will be exposed. At the time, people laughed it off. They called him bitter. They called him crazy. But now, a Netflix documentary drops, names quietly disappear, and suddenly Katt's words don't sound funny anymore. Because here's what most people missed. This wasn't just about Diddy. It never was. 7 major names were removed from the final cut of the Netflix documentary. Not random people, not small names, some of the biggest, most protected figures in entertainment. And according to Katt Williams, that was always going to happen. So today, we're breaking down who was removed, why they were protected, and what Netflix didn't want you to connect. And once you see the pattern, you won't unsee it. But to understand how this happened, you had to go back to the moment everyone ignored. Katt Williams's warning nobody took seriously. When Katt Williams sat down on Club Shay Shay, most people thought they were watching comedy. What they were actually watching was someone who had already seen how this ends. Katt didn't speak in names at first. He spoke in principles. He said the industry doesn't operate on talent, race, or loyalty. It operates on protection. And he made something very clear. The people who get angry at the truth are the ones who know it applies to them. That wasn't a rant. That was a line in the sand. Katt openly said he'd already been punished for speaking on certain figures in the past. He talked about being pushed out, labeled difficult, cancelled before canceling was even a thing. Not because he lied, but because he said things too early. So when he said 2024 would be the year things start coming out, it wasn't optimism. It was a timeline. And when Diddy's situation finally exploded into public view, Katt didn't celebrate. He waited. Because he knew what most people didn't. The truth would come out, but only the parts that were allowed. The Netflix documentary that wasn't what it seemed. When Netflix announced the Diddy documentary, the marketing made it sound explosive. Behind-the-scenes footage, legal strategy meetings, never-before-seen material. The kind of project that promised to finally tell the whole story. But from the moment it dropped, something felt off. Yes, it was damaging. Yes, it showed downfall. But it also felt carefully trimmed. And that's because it was. 50 Cent wasn't just involved. He was producing, which means he wasn't just telling a story. He was deciding where the story stops. Legal pressure hit immediately. Cease and desist letters. Claims that footage was never authorized. Quiet edits. Quiet removals. Netflix stood firm publicly, but behind the scenes, lines were being drawn. Because exposing one man is allowed. Exposing the system behind him? That's where things get dangerous. And that's where the 7 missing names come in. Why some names are untouchable in the entertainment industry. Not everyone plays by the same rules. Some people are replaceable. Some people are protected. Protection doesn't mean innocence. It means influence. It means too many connections. Too many business ties. Too many careers that collapse if one thread gets pulled. The people removed from the documentary weren't removed because they were irrelevant. They were removed because they were too relevant. So let's start with the name that made people pause. Snoop Dogg. Image, influence, and immunity. For decades, Snoop Dogg has been untouchable. Loved by fans. Respected by the industry. Positioned as culture, not controversy. But Snoop didn't exist outside Diddy's world. They ran in the same circles. Partied together. Did business together. Moved through the same elite spaces for years. And accusations tied to Snoop didn't just appear once. They surfaced, disappeared, then surfaced again. Each time, nothing happened. No investigations that stuck. No media pressure. No real fallout. Instead, Snoop performed on one of the biggest stages in America. That tells you everything. Including Snoop in the documentary wouldn't just upset fans. It would threaten distribution. Some figures are so deeply woven into the industry that touching them collapses the whole project. That's why his name never made the cut. And he wasn't the only one. Kevin Hart. When jokes become warnings, Kevin Hart is one of the smartest people in entertainment. And that's exactly why he's still standing. Early in his career, Kevin was around everything. The parties, the inner circles, the moments most people pretend didn't happen. And over the years, Kevin's comedy has done something interesting. It started sounding like deflection. Old footage resurfaced. Jokes that suddenly hit differently. Moments where he seemed uncomfortable, careful, almost alert. Then came the BET Awards. No after parties tonight. That line wasn't random. That was someone telling people, publicly, we're not doing that anymore. Kevin jokes, but he chooses his jokes carefully. Because he knows what happens when you say too much without protection. Including Kevin in the documentary wouldn't just expose him. It would expose an entire industry that relies on comedy to soften reality. So his name disappeared too. But the silence gets louder with the next one. Maze and Meek Mill. Silence, risk, and legal landmines. If anyone knows where everything is buried, it's Maze. He was there for the rise. The deals. The parties. The contracts. It took him 10 years to get out. 10 years just to regain control of his own work. And even now, he doesn't speak freely. That kind of silence doesn't come from peace. It comes from leverage. Including Maze would raise questions Netflix didn't want viewers asking. So he was removed. Then there's Meek Mill. For years, rumors circled quietly. Then audio leaked. Then names started being said out loud. Nothing officially confirmed. And that's exactly the problem. Unverified material isn't just dangerous, it's expensive. Meek has power, lawyers, influence. Putting his name in the documentary without airtight proof would have turned the project into a legal disaster. So 50 Cent made a business decision. Cut the risk. Cut the name. But not everyone was removed to avoid lawsuits. Some were removed to avoid something worse. Justin Bieber and Usher. The stories they refused to reopen. Justin Bieber didn't disappear from the documentary because he's guilty. He disappeared because he was a kid. There are old clips that make people uncomfortable to watch now. Moments where Justin looked confused, uncertain, out of place. Recently, when asked about Diddy, Justin shut it down completely. Don't ask me about that man ever. That wasn't attitude. That was protection. Justin is trying to heal. Reopening that chapter publicly would cross a line. So 50 Cent left him out. Usher is similar, but deeper. He was the first. The original, Flavor Camp. Usher has hinted for years that he saw things he couldn't unsee. That his life changed during that time. And later, he sent Justin into the same environment. That alone probably weighs on him every day. According to people close to production, Usher's segment was too dark. Not controversial. Dark. Some stories don't belong on streaming platforms. So Usher was removed. And then there's the name above all names. Clive Davis. The power nobody wants to touch. Most people don't know Clive Davis. And that's exactly why he's dangerous. Clive isn't a celebrity. He's a gatekeeper. Decades in the industry. Careers launched, careers buried, entire labels under his influence. Diddy didn't operate independently. He learned. And he learned from Clive. Katt Williams said it best. Diddy was the worker. Who was the boss? If Clive's name had stayed in the documentary, it wouldn't have aired. Not on Netflix. Not anywhere. Because exposing Clive doesn't just expose one person. It exposes the entire machine. So his name vanished. And that omission tells you more than anything else in the film. Conclusion. Exposure has limits. Katt Williams was right. But he also knew something most people don't want to accept. Not everyone will be exposed. Some names are too big. Some systems protect themselves. The documentary was never the end. It was the beginning, on approved terms. More charges are coming. Investigations aren't over. Lawsuits are stacking up. But the biggest names? They're still watching from the shadows. So now the question isn't who got exposed. It's who never will. Let me know in the comments which name you think should have stayed in the documentary, and whether you think protecting certain people was the right call. Because once you see how this works, you can't unsee it. Katt Williams wasn't done talking. And this is the part they really tried to bury. There's an unwritten rule in entertainment. You can fall. You can be embarrassed. You can even be sacrificed. But you cannot expose how the system works. Diddy wasn't protected forever, he became expendable. That's the difference. Once someone becomes more dangerous inside the system than outside of it, protection turns into permission to fall. Katt Williams understood that early. That's why he never begged to be let back in. Because once you know the rule, you realize something terrifying. Some people are allowed to be exposed, so others never have to be. Why 50 Cent was the perfect messenger. A lot of people ask the wrong question. They ask, why would 50 Cent protect anyone? That's not the real question. The real question is, why was 50 Cent allowed to make this documentary at all? 50 isn't a moral crusader. He's a strategist. Netflix didn't choose him because he's fearless. They chose him because he understands where the lines are. He knows who can be named, who can be implied, and who cannot be touched under any circumstances. That's why the documentary exists. If someone else tried to tell this story, it wouldn't have made it past pre-production. 50 Cent didn't break the system. He navigated it. And Katt Williams saw that coming too. The pattern Katt keeps pointing to. Katt never just calls out individuals. He calls out patterns. Young talent enters the industry. They're isolated. Mentored. Exposed to things too early. Some survive by playing along. Some survive by staying quiet. Some don't survive at all, at least not mentally. And the ones at the top? They never change. They just replace faces. That's why Katt keeps saying this isn't about race, fame, or genre. It's about sides. And once you see the pattern, the excuses stop working. Why certain accusations never go anywhere. Here's something most people don't realize. When accusations hit someone powerful, the industry doesn't ask, is this true? They ask, what happens if this sticks? If the answer is lawsuits, collapsed brands, broken partnerships, stock drops, platform liability, then the story disappears. Not with announcements. With silence. That's why some names trend for 48 hours, and then vanish like nothing happened. It's not denial. It's containment. The real meaning of too dark for TV When people say certain footage was too dark, they don't mean graphic. They mean implicating. They mean too many people, too many timelines, too many shared rooms, too many witnesses. Dark doesn't mean disturbing. Dark means connected. And that's the line Netflix won't cross. Not because they don't care, but because crossing it threatens the entire platform. Blank, underscore, blank, why Katt Williams is still talking. Katt doesn't need documentaries. He doesn't need approval. He doesn't need to clean his message up. That's why he's dangerous. He says things before the headlines, before the court filings, before the edits. And every time something happens, people realize he wasn't guessing. He was reporting from memory. That's also why he never sounds shocked. He's already seen the ending. Blank, underscore, blank, the industry isn't panicking, and that matters. Here's the detail nobody is paying attention to. If this were truly unpredictable, the industry would be panicking. But they're not. Award shows still happen. Deals are still being signed. Names are still being celebrated. Because this isn't chaos. It's controlled damage. One fall to preserve the structure. That's how it's always worked. Blank, underscore, blank, what comes next, and why it won't look like justice. More lawsuits are coming. More names will be hinted at. More sources close to the situation will talk. But don't expect a full purge. That's not how systems survive. Expect settlements, sealed documents, quiet rebrands, sudden disappearances, and expect a few more sacrifices. Enough to satisfy the public. Not enough to collapse the machine. Blank, underscore, blank, final thought. Katt's real message. Katt Williams never said everyone would fall. He said all lies would be exposed. Exposure doesn't mean consequences. It means clarity. And once you see who gets named, and who never does, you start to understand the real hierarchy. So the question isn't whether Katt was right. The question is, who's still protected, and for how long? Because if history tells us anything, the system doesn't fall. It sheds weight.